Up next, Friday the 13th is usually a day associated with luck, or more specifically, the absence of it. Though most people brush this day off to the side due to its superstitious nature, this day would become an unforgettable one for the Williams family, as the sudden gruesome death of 57-year-old Jeffrey Williams would leave the family in an inescapable nightmare. San Jose is one of the largest cities in the world, yet no one seems to recognize nor acknowledge it. Overshadowed by the brilliant international orange of San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge and the bright lights of Los Angeles' Hollywood, this city prides itself on being home to the technological hub of the world known as Silicon Valley. Once known for its peacefulness, San Jose has seen a rise in gang violence over the past few years, and it has tainted its reputation as being one of the safest cities in the world. In the tranquil community of El Rancho Verde, however, this newfound violence has not carried over. No one would ever think that such a horrendous act would happen as it did on Friday the 13th. This tight-knit community is more well known for the multitude of Asian cultures that it houses. Being one of the only white families in this community, Jeffrey and Chloe Williams were forced to adjust to this new culture. Jeffrey Williams was a 57-year-old entrepreneur who has spent years pursuing his dream, becoming wealthy from buying and selling penny stocks. With a success in the stock market, he opened up 4 chains of a restaurant called Sweet Potatoes. His new wife, Chloe Payton, was a saleswoman in her early 30s whom he met at a welcoming party at one of his new opening locations for Sweet Potatoes. Before Jeffrey was with Chloe, he was with his first wife, Angela Reed, who he had recently divorced due to her crazy and erratic behavior. However, they still currently have joint ownership over the company. Their 25-year-old son, Joe Williams, was dating 23-year-old Bonnie Johnson. On May 13, 2016, at approximately 11 a.m., Chloe had just arrived at the apartment after a business meeting when she discovered a note left on the table alongside her and her husband's bed. It was addressed to her and read, "Going for a swim. Be back soon. Jeffrey." Prepared to join her husband, Chloe made her way to the pool where she came across a horrifying discovery.
What's your emergency?
My husband is dead. He's dead. Oh my god.
Okay, can you describe the crime scene to me?
He's lying on a janitorial with blood dripping on his throat. Please come now.
Okay, miss, I'm going to need you to take deep breaths. Do you think you could give me the address?
El Rancho Verde apartment number 6090. It's the pool right next to it.
Okay, police and paramedics will be there shortly, ma'am.
Please hurry.
When I got home, I went around the house looking for my husband, but he usually be sitting on a couch waiting for me, but he wasn't there this time. I look in the kitchen, and our bedroom, and the bathroom, but he wasn't there. I was in the bedroom when I noticed a note on a countertop from Jeffrey saying that he'd be at the pool. I was just going about to join him, but I didn't expect to find his lifeless body laying on the pool.
Jeffrey's body was found lying on the tanning chair in a limp position. His throat was slit all the way across and blood was still dripping onto the floor, creating a large pool of blood next to him. The bizarre thing is that there was no evidence of any arterial spurting. His slides next to the created some form of blood spatter, but there was none to be found.
Man, I've been on the police force for about 7 years now. I've never seen such a gruesome crime scene as I did on that day, especially in this area. Investigators pointed out the absence of any form of arterial spurting so we can only assume that such a body had been removed. If that's the case, then I don't know what kind of sicko would murder a man and leave that body to be found in broad daylight. I can only imagine what his wife must be going through. It was a very, very scary thing to see.
I remember the first thing I noticed when I got to the scene was how the pool of blood had become slightly gel-like. We knew right off the bat that the body had to have been placed there within the hour that it was discovered. This meant that whoever had moved the body must have done so between the hours of 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Upon discovering the body, investigators immediately began a thorough search of Jeffrey and Chloe's apartment, where they came across a breaking discovery.
Multiple pieces of the evidence were collected from the crime scene. There was a note that Chloe had pointed out addressed to her from what we can only assume was Jeffrey, alongside his phone, which was found on the same bedside table. However, the most important piece of evidence had almost gone unnoticed because of the fact that they were hidden from plain sight.
Investigators discovered an ordinary kitchen knife taped beneath the mattress of the recently wed couple. The blade itself was covered in blood, and further analysis of the DNA confirmed that the blood found on the blade belonged to Jeffrey Williams. The discovery of the murder weapon, however, was the least of their concerns. It was what was found at the base of the knife and underneath the bed that took the investigation in an unexpected turn. When investigators found the knife taped beneath the bed, they came across multiple strands of hair laying on the floor beneath it. After properly collecting and packaging both the knife and the strands of hair, investigators noticed what looked like possible fingerprints at the base of the knife. Both pieces of evidence were immediately sent out for DNA and fingerprint analysis.
We were able to conduct a fingerprint analysis by dusting the base of the knife with the black powder and using an adhesive to lift the print. After running it through our database, we came across a match. According to APHIS, the fingerprint found on the murder weapon belonged to a woman named Angela Reed. However, the DNA analysis that was run on the follicle found attached to the strand of the hair evidently belonged to Jeffrey's son, Joe.
Given this new information, investigators continued to analyze the remainder of the evidence collected from the crime scene. Immediately after turning on Jeffrey's phone, they were brought to a conversation between Jeffrey and Bonnie Johnson. According to the text messages, Bonnie had invited Jeffrey over to her home on Friday the 13th at approximately 9:45 a.m., claiming that Joe had gone out for groceries. As they scrolled up, they discovered similar invitations as well as a fair share of inappropriate messages. Hoping to receive some clarification, investigators brought Bonnie Johnson in for questioning, to which they were given some crucial information. May 13th, 2016, 5:03 p.m. Interviewee Bonnie Johnson. Hi, Bonnie. The text messages we found on your phone suggest that you've been seeing Jeffrey Williams quite frequently over these past couple of months. Is this true? Please, Bonnie. The more info you share, the better chance we have of finding Jeffrey's killer.
Yes, okay. Yes, me and Jeffrey have been seeing each other over these past couple of months. But I swear to you, the last time that we met up was 2 weeks ago. I know that what I did to Joe was wrong, but that's why I ended things 2 weeks ago. You probably think I'm a horrible person, and I know that you have no reason to believe me, but I never meant for any of this to happen. I told him I wanted to stop things, but he kept trying to convince me otherwise. But I made it very clear that it would never happen again. Please, you have to believe me. I did not send those texts asking to meet up on Friday. I wasn't even home that morning. I went to the gym and I left my phone at home so I wouldn't have to carry it with me.
Who else had access to your home around that time? Was Jeffrey home when you left for the gym? Was Jeffrey home, Bonnie?
He seemed fine that morning. He would never.
Thank you for your time, Bonnie. We're done. Investigators brought Joe in for questioning regarding his whereabouts during the time of the crime. He testified that he had gone for a jog at 9 a.m. to purchase groceries from his local grocery store. He also mentioned that he had heard Jeffrey fighting with Angela over the phone the night before regarding his half of the company. According to Joe, Jeffrey was planning on passing down his half of the company to him in the event that he passed away. Angela was supposedly furious because she testified that the other half belonged to her. Angela had then become the main suspect in the investigation, but when investigators searched Joe and Bonnie's home, they found no evidence of any newly bought groceries, making his testimony unreliable. Investigators then turned to Angela Reed for questioning, in which she claimed that she had spent her entire morning on Friday the 13th at the Sweet Potatoes HQ. Evidence of her presence at the Sweet Potatoes HQ from numerous co-workers as well as surveillance cameras confirmed her whereabouts. But her interrogation provided a new lead in the investigation, given her claim that Joe had visited her home the night before Jeffrey's body was found, upon which she discovered one of her knives was missing from her kitchen drawer.
So the knife we found underneath the mattress matched the missing kitchen knife in Angela's kitchen. Though we were not entirely confident that this was enough evidence to convict Joe of having murdered his father. However, as we were scanning Joe's neighborhood, we noticed that his neighbor had a camera just outside his front porch, which overlooked the front yard of Joe's house. With the homeowner's permission, we were able to look through the footage from Friday the 13th, and it was just as we had suspected.
The surveillance footage showed Jeffrey arriving at Joe's home around 10 a.m. He can be seen pulling up to the house, parking parallel to the street in front of the tree. He walks up excitedly and doesn't seem to notice Joe's car parked up in the driveway, despite the fact that Chloe claimed that Joe wasn't home. Approximately 30 minutes later, Joe is seen walking out of the house, walks up to his car, and opens the back door. He walks back in, and 30 seconds pass before he is seen coming out again with his dead father's body in his arms. He throws his body into the back seat, goes into the driver's seat, and drives away. With Bonnie's permission, investigators were also able to investigate Joe's home and discovered something striking. When they sprayed luminol onto the table in the living room, it lit up blue, signaling that there was a large amount of blood that was washed off. A handwriting analyst also discovered that the note left behind by Jeffrey was actually left behind by Joe. With the acquisition of these surveillance videos coupled with all of the evidence they'd collected beforehand, investigators felt confident that they could finally convict Joe and presented the evidence to a jury. Investigators also felt that they now had enough evidence to recreate what possibly happened on that fateful day. Joe had sent the text messages to Jeffrey posing as Bonnie. When Jeffrey got to the house and unlocked the door, Joe hid in the hallway and waited for the right time to attack. He grabbed Jeffrey and pushed him onto the couch, slicing his neck without much resistance. After that, Joe cleaned up the bloody mess with bleach. He then carried Jeffrey's lifeless body to the car, shoved him in, and drove to the El Rancho Verde apartments. When he got to the apartment, he walked up to the swimming pool with Jeffrey's lifeless body on his back and decided to put him down on a tanning chair. After leaving Jeffrey's body on the tanning chair, he went into Jeffrey and Chloe's apartment. He taped the bloody knife under the couple's bed and wrote a note that claimed Jeffrey was going to be swimming and that he'd be back soon, and he left. After reviewing all of the evidence, the jury found Joe guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
In all my years, I've never come across a case where someone used their own mother as a scapegoat. And I haven't ever had to solve a case where the son of the own victim is the murderer. I'm just glad that Joe was found guilty and locked up where he can never harm anyone ever again.